Hello and welcome to Citizens Forum. This week is February 12th when we're shooting this show, and I really want to thank the wonderful crew of people who do all the work so that Walter and I can sit here on television and do nothing. So thanks again to Shaw staff and all the great volunteers. This is being filmed in the basement of the main floor of the Memorial Arena. The first part of Citizens Forum is the Walt and Jack Show, and we're going to be talking about smart meters, an issue that is of great importance to me. The media is not giving it the coverage it deserves, and it's, I think, kind of a metaphor for so many undemocratic, kind of dishonest, sleazy, and wrong things that are happening in the province. And we're going to start by talking about the NDP's position on smart meters, because I've been waiting for them to say something for a long, long time now, and the silence is deafening.
Well, that's right, Jack. I mean, we've known all along that although the NDP has always been making noises saying how awful the program is and how unfair it is, but on the other hand, they've never made a commitment to what they would do if they were a government. Now, recently, we've read in the media, and there was an article in the province yesterday in which he's quoted as saying that even though it's not that good a program, that the NDP government, and if he's energy critic, they will not get rid of the smart meter program.
And we're talking now about John Horgan.
John Horgan.
Yeah.
So what's so curious about all this is that how could he have been such a harsh critic and then turn around and now say that no, we're not getting rid of the program, it's going to, we can't turn the clock back and all that.
That's what Michael Smith said in the article in the province, that the NDP has really strongly opposed smart meters. But I mean, I don't see any opposition to the smart meters from the NDP. I mean, you told me, I wouldn't know this otherwise, that all the old analog meters, the old meters that have served us so well for decades, have been destroyed.
That's correct. Yeah, they're gone.
They've done this so that you can't say, I want my old meter back. Well,
but the interesting thing
the NDP, where has the NDP been on that? Have they said a word?
Well,
I've never heard it.
What the problem is with their position of saying they can't turn the clock back. By the way, the major portion of this smart metering program is the wireless part of the program, in which they're going to be creating a whole network, a mesh grid of wireless technology on the whole province. It's like another cell phone network to monitor smart meter consumption. Now, these meters can remain in the home and not be activated, the wireless portion, so you just read the meter like you normally would. So it's not like you're throwing out the $1 billion, but just that you're not going to use the wireless technology.
Okay, so I think that is like one of the most important points on this whole issue, and I'm just going to repeat it, that basically keep the meters in, just don't turn the wireless part of it on.
That's correct.
And have the old meter readers coming around and still reading them. That sounds like, but is the NDP going to do that?
Well, they're not going to do that, I don't think. And by the way, the cost to the consumer for having the meter readers was pennies a day or something, $2 a year or something per consumer. So if the cost of having a meter reader is a non-existent issue. Now, what the NDP are claiming they're going to do, or what John Horgan is claiming he's going to do, is refer this to the BC Utilities Commission and let them analyze the program. Now, why we know that that's not a good idea, because we've looked at that carefully and thought, well, what could the BC Utilities Commission do? Well, they really can't do a whole heck of a lot. Number one, if you're going to talk about biological effects, which is a big portion of this issue, the BC Utilities Commission do not have any scientists or anybody there to analyze any data around that. They're going to go and ask Dr. Perry Kendall whether or not wireless technology is safe.
If there were actually some real hearings where both sides, I mean, that would be a good thing. I think the NDP should have stopped this, stated a long time ago that they will oppose and stop this program.
Nevertheless, Jack, we know what will happen.
Yes, we know
what will happen is that they might have a few expert witnesses in looking at these biological effects, and then they'll bring in the big guns, Dr. Kindle and others, to say that there's no health issue, and that'll shut that down. Now, when you talk about information security and the privacy issues around the technology, I have a quote here from an ex-CIA director, the head of the CIA, saying that your information is not secure at all. I don't think we have to get into that right now, but the other thing is...
I'm just going to read what he said. Is that
Go ahead,
okay?
yeah.
So this is Thalia Assurus from EnergyNow.com sat down with former CIA Director James Woolsey to discuss the current state of the nation's electric grid and its vulnerabilities. Woolsey says that the federal government's oversight of grid security, and I guess that's the whole smart meter, the way the information is transmitted, the oversight of grid security is inadequate and attacks on the grid are entirely possible. No one is in charge of security for the grid, whether it's cyber or transformers or whatever. You can search forever through the federal code to try to find out who that person might be who's in charge, and you won't find them. So that's the whole issue of our information being given to whoever.
Precisely, but what we're talking about is with the BC Utilities Commission. If people bring this information to them, these people do not have expertise to analyze that.
But they are hopefully a group. If they were a group of average citizens, almost picked at random, and they heard both sides, and they were an honest group with integrity, then I don't see how they could find other than...
one could let you...
Are they? I don't know.
But the commission is not structured that way. Well, the BC Utilities Commission is basically, they have one area of expertise, and that is looking at whether or not the utility company, like BC Hydro in this case, is abiding by legislation. Now, the only legislation that we're really concerned about is the Clean Energy Act, and the utility company is abiding by that legislation to the dot.
So when the NDP says they're going to refer it to the BC Utilities Commission, it's not really much of a thing.
Well, what it is just your ultimate catch-22. Because the Utilities Commission is going to come back and say, well, they're abiding by the law. The NDP have no plans to change the Clean Energy Act, and that'll be that. They'll say, oh, well, here we are.
I'm just going to repeat what I said last week, talking about the safety issue. This is Dr. David Carpenter, who testified in Quebec, because in Quebec they did have public hearings. What did they decide to do in Quebec? Are they putting smart meters in?
At the moment, they're not.
Oh, really?
But
Quebec is so far ahead of us on so many issues.
But no, it's not settled by any stretch.
Oh, but here they're going ahead.
Oh, yeah.
In fact, they've gone ahead. I've never known that. I think that's a very important fact. In Quebec, they're not installing them. And it's funny that in all the media coverage of this, not that there's been that much, they never mention that somewhere in Canada they haven't done it. But anyways, Dr. Carpenter testified at the public hearings in Quebec. Dr. David Carpenter serves as director of the Institute for Health and the Environment at the University at Albany School of Public Health. He previously served as director of the Wadsworth Laboratory of the New York State Department of Health. This is what he testified at the Quebec hearings. It is my opinion that the state of scientific research sufficiently establishes a risk that meters transmitting by radio frequencies, in other words, smart meters, may constitute a risk of serious as well as irreversible damage to health through biological effects. So there we have it, as far as I can see, in as black and white as you want to get. And yet, where's the NDP on the health issue? Why aren't they screaming from the rooftops?
Well, the NDP will not talk about health issues because when they become the government, the Ministry of Health, who Dr. Perry Kendall is the Chief Medical Health Officer, is stoically maintaining a position that there are no health effects. By the way, Dr. Kendall's quoting the International Commission on Non-Ionizing Radiation Protection. Say that really fast a few times. But when I looked into that organization, who has associated themselves with the World Health Organization, but they are not part of the World Health Organization, That commission is actually officially an industry lobby group, paid by the industry completely.
So
And
wait
they-
a sec. So what you said, I think, was that one of the organizations that our provincial public health officer refers to as the scientific basis is in fact a
is an industry lobby group, paid by the industry, and their standards are so ridiculously lax, and it's so outlandish that a medical health officer would rely on those guidelines under any circumstances, but to happily quote this lobby group who's pretending to be associated with the World Health Organization and who are pretending to have guidelines. And we have a Dr. Perry Kindle who's pretending that he's taking care of the public. And by the way, the government of British Columbia, who are the Liberals right now, will soon to be the NDP, are going to pretend to be protecting the public health also. It's a farce, Jack. It's completely ridiculous. It flies in the face of reality and common sense, and it would be a farce in a funny way if so many people were not being hurt by this. And this is a tremendous injustice. So the thing is, what I'm trying to point out here with the NDP, with their very, very tricky posturing of saying, oh, the smart meters are awful, aren't they? But elect us and we might let you have an opt-out, or we might let you have this or that. And they're not looking out after the interests of the public. This is the problem. Now is a time where, before this election, the public should be putting these parties' feet to the fire and say, no, it's not good enough. We want to know now, what are your policies? What are your platforms? What are you going to do when elected? Are you going to end the smart meter program or not? Yes or no? Are you going to do very specific things? Right now, most of the public are just willing to hold their noses and go to the polls and pick the lesser of evils. But I think we deserve a lot better than that.
Well, in a democracy, we would get a lot better than that. In a democracy, I think if a program like the smart meter program, I don't think ever could have gone ahead, because the public never wanted it. It was just started, I guess, based on orders from above, namely the corporate world, to our provincial government and to the opposition as well, that we've decided we're going to put smart meters in, and it's to our benefit, say the corporations. And both the Liberals and the NDP are forced to go along with it. If they don't go along with it, they will be destroyed. I mean, that's how I see politics in this country, because the corporations own all the media. And I mean, they've got so much on all the political leaders, and even if they don't, how hard would it be to destroy the career of Adrian Dix if the media wanted to destroy it?
Well, I mean, there is a lot of manipulation.
Or anyone.
And it's a very, very sad thing to really witness how much manipulation there is. Now, we had a successful referendum on the HST, which Gordon Campbell allowed to happen. And it was a very, very important question.
He didn't allow it to happen.
Well,
people demanded it.
They demanded it, but he did offer up a referendum, and the people voted. Now, I think, to be fair, the NDP should at least offer that to the public and say, okay, we're not going to take a firm stand on this issue, but we're going to allow a referendum vote on this issue and pay for it and basically facilitate a vote and abide by the results. That would be a democratic thing to do.
And the Liberals should have done it in the first place, obviously.
Exactly. And allow the public to have a choice and make a decision based upon the facts. So, I mean, we're in a situation where we have a Liberal government that's obviously just completely tied to the program, and they can't escape it. But we also have these opposition parties that are unwilling to give the public a choice. And we're into a lot of trouble if we can't make anything happen.
So let's say there was a referendum. How do you think people would vote?
Well, we would have to find out.
Yeah, but what are the arguments for and against? I mean,
well, this is it.
If we would have been allowed to vote before, I mean, $1 billion cost for no benefit that anyone can see, definite health risks. There's no question about the health risks. Those are scientifically proven. Our information is put at risk. because these meters will monitor a lot that goes in the house, and I'm sure there's other things as well. So why would anybody have voted for it?
Well, from what we can tell, there's a segment of the population that's hard against. There's a segment of the population that really don't know much about the issue, and there's a whole big middle ground of people that are just basically don't have an opinion. They sort of don't like smart meters, but they really are not riled up about it. But I think if you had a referendum on the question, you'd certainly get these issues out and we would talk about them.
One of the big reasons that people aren't riled up about it is that this quote that I read from Dr. David Carpenter, I guess an eminent world expert on these health issues from smart meters, when he says there's a risk to everybody's health from these smart meters and they're on your house. And the media, as far as I know, this has never been reported anywhere in British Columbia. Nobody has ever reported what he said.
They seem incapable of reporting the facts or the truth. And our local paper here, the Times Colonist, when we delivered evidence to the medical health officer, we delivered 160 studies. There they were on paper, right there, giving them to that medical health officer, and the Times Colonist reported that they didn't see any studies that showed harm. They couldn't see them in our hands or something. So I mean, obviously, there's a big problem there too.
But again, people would be up in arms if the truth was reported, and that's why the truth isn't being reported.
Well, exactly. I think that generally what you're looking at is you have these ministries, like the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Education. If I was elected premier, I'd be hauling all those deputy ministers in, the heads of all these different departments in. I'm saying, look, I want you guys to do your job. I want you to protect the public health. I want you people like the Ministry of Education, because there's so much going on with the, I think they call it Century 21 learning or something. It's all wireless technology. It's all being driven by the ministry and by large corporations, and the government is sort of going along with it.
Because we have to face the fact that's who runs our country now, the corporations. The governments are just their puppets controlling us and doing what they're told. We've got 5 minutes left, Walter.
Well, I just wanted to, if I could, we are bringing into Victoria, the fellow's name is Jerry Flynn. He is a retired signals analyst and an expert on electromagnetic warfare, and he was in the Canadian military for 27 years. Now he's on a speaking tour of British Columbia. He's going to be making several stops, one of which will be here in Victoria, and he's going to be speaking at St. Andrew's High School. I'm going to hold this up. I don't know if you can see it. And basically that's going to be on February 20th.
Give us the easiest website that people can
go to citizensforsafetechnology.org is always the best website.
Citizensforsafetechnology.org.
But Jerry has a fantastic presentation. Just gives example after example of why this type of technology is not secure, because that's his area of expertise. And he also knows about the biological effects, and he points out many examples of how this type of technology is harmful. So I urge everybody to get out to see Jerry and see his PowerPoint presentation, and including all these local politicians and all the politicians that are in British Columbia or here at the legislature. Take an evening off. Go up and get educated, because this is a point of view that they should really hear.
Are you informing our legislators of this talk?
Yes, they've been informed several times, and
it'd be interesting to see if anybody shows up.
Well, I hope a few will come. I mean, obviously they don't want to hear this message, but if they go and expose themselves to these ideas, I think they could come away with a more rounded view of the issue.
Well, we're talking about smart meters, and is there any politician in the province who has a position that is somewhere close to your own?
Well, Elizabeth May, the leader of the Green Party of Canada, has come out and publicly stated that there are health issues and privacy and security issues, and they think all types of wireless technology should be very, very carefully regulated, and that we need new guidelines. So the federal greens are very strong. The provincial greens not so much so. They've moved around quite hard. It's very hard to nail them down exactly what their policies are. So there's a federal NDP member of parliament, and his name is Alex Alamaktinko or something like that. I'm sorry, I don't know his last name. He's a member of parliament for up around Nelson and an area, and he's very solid on understanding this type of technology is being harmful, and is very, very supportive of what we're doing. So there are some politicians, there are some people that are elected who understand the gravity of the situation, and hopefully we can move this discussion along, move this conversation along a little further than what we're seeing in the popular media and things.
And really, I think I can safely say that smart meters are just a metaphor for so many things that are going on in the province, from poverty to healthcare to schools to the deficit. The people are not told the truth. The media is not working for us. The politicians are not working for us. The corporations run the province and the country, and it's their agenda that's being played out. And what we need more than anything else is a bit more democracy and a free press, and then we can start to move in some positive directions, whatever those directions are that people want to go in. Thank you for watching the Walt and Jack part of Citizens Forum.